It's 8:24. You're watching BT on this Tuesday morning. Well, anybody who's struggled with any kind of depression, even the mild kind, knows how hard it can be. But Autumn Stringam has dealt with something much more severe than that. Welcome to the show this morning.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, Autumn, you have bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean exactly?
Bipolar is it's kind of the opposite of depression in that you have the really big highs, extreme highs. For me, my manic highs would take me to a place of paranoia or delusional highs, and then slip down into the really deep lows where I just was completely dysfunctional in depression.
And how common is this? I mean, how many people deal with this?
Oh, it's really common. What do they say? It's a huge number of people in Canada. I'm losing the numbers here, but like 1 in 4 will suffer with mental illness.
Right.
I'm not sure on the numbers just for bipolar, but it's huge.
You've written a book called A Promise of Hope, which really is this amazing book about sort of your struggles with it and your family history, which we'll get to that in a moment because that is a book in and itself. Had you written before?
No, not really. I did a lot of journaling and writing in elementary school. I won an award.
What grade were you in when you won the award?
Grade 4, I think.
Yeah. And then you write this book about your family history. How did that happen?
Well, I mean, I lost my ability to write, and I even really my ability to read during the most serious term of my illness. So for several years, like in high school, I was kind of crutching through on the ups and downs. When I was low, I couldn't function in school, and when I was high, I did really well. So I kind of got through that way.
Right.
But during the years that I was medicated, I really couldn't function. I couldn't read or write well.
A lot of cases like yours do have family history involved in that. You certainly had a family history, right? Your mom was very much diagnosed with this as well.
Yes, yeah, and she ultimately committed suicide. 16 years before my mom committed suicide, my grandfather committed suicide using prescription drugs.
And so how did this affect your childhood? What was that like?
Oh, I think in the early years, I just thought you always grew up thinking that you're living normal, right? It wasn't until I was in high school that I started realizing that my mother wasn't just having, episodes of meanness, that she was actually sick. And so I think that kind of, you see things differently, the older you get. Even when I started having my own children, I saw her differently.
Right. But at what point did you realize that you were similarly afflicted with the same kind of problem and that you had to do something about it? Was there a point?
I always had hints of it. When she would have episodes, even at like 8 years old, I remember having feelings about that. 10, I had problems with suicidal thoughts and feelings. By the time I was 16, I found her in a situation where she was clearly psychotic, and that's when I knew that she was expressing what I was always fighting.
Was it hard for you to bring all that up for the book, though? Because the book is very detailed. As a mother reading your book, my heart broke for you, where I just couldn't believe that you were put through that as a child. How hard was that for you?
It was really hard, but I felt like if I was going to write the story at all, I had to be really honest about it. I didn't want to whitewash the illness, and I didn't want people to read it and think that I didn't understand their circumstances because I was refusing to be completely honest with my own.
Right.
So I needed to be honest about the illness.
You wanted people to sort of be able to recognize their own problems when they read your book.
And I think that they do. I get a lot of comments from people saying that they understand their own parents or understand themselves, that have given words to their illness or to their own pain. Right. And I think it's important to break that silence.
What happened to you that changed things?
My dad ultimately came up with a really wacky idea that is now being studied at universities all over the place. And Dr. Popper from Harvard University has written the afterword for my book. He met a man who did pig feed formulation in southern Alberta. They made some comparisons between my brother's bipolar behavior and pigs with an agitation called ear and tail biting syndrome. And they put together this really crazy recipe of vitamins and minerals and started using it.
That's almost like a whole other story. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. But you did the regular sort of the drugs, and you went to the doctor and you got all that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And what did that do to you?
I think it saved my life.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I didn't have a better answer, and sedation was a really good option for me when I might have otherwise hurt myself. In fact, I know that I would have. And every time that I had a med breakthrough or experienced symptoms again, my first thought was, how am I going to check out of here?
Right.
So it was good. I had really good doctors, and they did the very best that they could.
But
ultimately, that wasn't the answer for me.
And you have children of your own?
I do. I have 4 kids now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so
my son turned 15 yesterday, actually.
And is it hard for them? I mean, they've had to deal with this as well.
Oh, my 3 girls haven't dealt with it. They've grown up in a really normal, healthy home because I didn't start having them until I was well into my recovery.
But your son's a different story.
Yeah. He has, till he was 3, he was experiencing, life with a bipolar mom. And even for the first couple of years, I was getting over some behaviors and trying to figure out how to be a different kind of mother. And so he did. He experienced the hard side of the illness.
Okay, well, as Autumn mentioned, she found something, or her dad found something that really helped her, but even that was a bit of a struggle. So coming up a little bit later, we're going to talk about the fight to even be able to take that, which made you feel better, and lots of other stories. We're going to talk to your husband as well. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, Autumn. Right now, let's find out what's going on with traffic and weather. Here's Dawn.